The latest insider reports tell us that Aaron Rodgers ain't coming back to the Jets in 2025, or else they're not having him. Plus, this athletic report of Woody Johnson meddling? Yeah, boy. Never a dull day in the Jets neighborhood. Boy Green Daily starts now.
I'm going to lose my gosh darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
I made it clear that my intention was to play, and my intention was to play for the New York Jets.
Just realized I'm going to have to change that intro, I guess. Anywho, I'm Paul Liston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcast. And make sure as you're coming in, you like the video, hit subscribe. Also, feel free to join the Boy Green Coffee Club, baby. That is the pinned comment on youtube.com/boygreen25. Also, it's always available in the YouTube description in the videos down below. Help support the show. Let's bring in our special guest that joins us every Wednesday, but because of some extracurricular activities for myself, we have not had Nick on in a long time here on Boy Green Daily. So let's welcome him back with open arms and your pancakes on your plate. Nick Faria joins us. What's up, Nick?
How's everything going, Paul?
Well, everything is going. There's a lot of layers to get to here. First off, we'll start off with the first thing that happened yesterday is that general manager Joe Douglas gets fired by the New York Jets. And we'll get into some of the Joe Douglas stuff, but the immediate reporting that has come out, Connor Hughes said, that long story short, that Aaron Rodgers is the team let me just get the verbatim correct here. The team prefers to move on from Aaron Rodgers, is what Connor Hughes reported yesterday from SNY. ESPN's Rich Cimini had one source tell him that he'd be, quote, shocked if owner Woody Johnson brought back Rodgers in 2025. So it sounds like even if Rodgers wants to play, it'll be either by trade, cut, or God knows what. We could get into that in a second. But just on the surface, that Aaron Rodgers is unlikely to return to the Jets in 2025. What is your reaction to that?
Not surprised at all. When Aaron Rodgers made his point about stability and having continuity in the locker room and organization from one year to the next, that was kind of another a feather in the cap of Joe Douglas to say, hey, I've got my quarterback support. That should be enough. But in the end, the writing was always going to be on the wall. The minute that Woody Johnson fired Robert Saleh, and it sounded like he did not consult Joe Douglas when he did so, the writing was on the wall that Douglas was not going to be here next year. His contract was expiring. The team wasn't winning games. Maybe things change if they went on a run with Jeff Ulbrich as the intern. But the reality of the situation is Joe Douglas did some good for this roster, but in the moves that mattered most, head coach, quarterback, he did not get the position right. He did not get the coach right, and that is a fireable offense for most GMs in the National Football League. Look, you can get a good receiver and a good cornerback and a good running back, and all these things are good, and you improve the talent of the roster from when you come in. But if you can't get the quarterback, what does it mean? It means absolutely nothing. And we've seen that for the Jets, where this team has a lot of talent, but they have no idea how to play together. They have no idea how to win. And that is a reflection on the moves also made by Douglas as well.
Yeah, I agree. The reason why Douglas is the main reason that Joe Douglas is not a member of the Jets today is he effed up the quarterback position at every level. When he took over in 2019, he promised Sam Darnold's parents, don't worry, we're going to take care of this guy. Yeah, he gets traded. Zach Wilson is one of the worst draft picks in NFL history. And then Aaron Rodgers, which I don't blame him for the whack at the baseball bat at the plate. It seemed to be the right decision, but it didn't work out. So, it's unfortunate that Rodgers' Achilles exploded, but, sometimes things happen and it is what it is. So no matter what, the Jets got, boned at quarterback every single time, and that blood is on Joe Douglas. Now, I see here from Jason Fitzgerald, who runs Over the Cap. He tweeted this out a couple days ago, but it's still relevant now. He said, quote, regarding Aaron Rodgers' contract with the Jets, there is dead money if he goes in 2025, but no guarantees remain. It's not his choice about staying in New York or going. The Jets get to make that decision, end quote. because in Green Bay, with how his contract was structured, he just kind of held the team hostage all the time for months and months and months. Am I coming back? Am I not? Same sort of things happen with Brett Favre. It doesn't sound like that's the case based on structure with the Jets, that they can make a very clean decision here. Now, they may have to take their lumps like the Broncos did with Russell Wilson and things of that nature with some of the dead money here. But let me ask you this. Do you think the Jets could trade if Aaron Rodgers says, hey, I want to play in 2025? The Jets are like, well, you're not playing for us. Is it possible to trade him? Could there be a team that he gets traded to, or will the Jets just simply have to cut him?
I think the Jets will simply have to cut him. First off, 41-year-old quarterback coming off arguably one of the worst seasons of his career, whether it be numbers-wise, one of the best seasons of a Jets quarterback, which is actually the way it's looking right now. Pretty crazy to think about. But what value does Aaron Rodgers bring to a team? What value is a team going to want in Aaron Rodgers? He's now been with the Packers at the end, where they have just completely collapsed around him. And now he went to the Jets, where there's talks about, locker room problems and ownership problems, and the team did everything to make sure that he was happy, and it didn't work out. There's going to be few teams that I feel are going to be interested in having Rodgers at all on their roster. So I think at the very least, the Jets are going to have to cut him. And I will say, depending on the future of the team and if they want to eat all the dead cap this year or spread it out in previous years, that's going to be up to the new general manager about what they exactly want to do. Do they want to just take the bullet in 2025 and build towards 2026? Or do you want to spread the dead cap around in later years? That is a preference based on salary cap managers. Now, there are some people like Howie Roseman who want to eat the dead cap right away. We'll take our lumps now and we'll be better for it in 2-3 years. But there are other guys like the Saints who want to just push off the dead cap as much as possible and sort of spread it out over many, many years. So it's a different philosophy that the Jets are going to have to figure out, but we will only get that answer when that person is hired as the general manager.
What do you make of the Jets' decision to fire Joe Douglas in the middle of this season? The Jets are heading into their bye week. For those who don't know, we've said this a few times, but Joe Douglas' contract was expiring. So technically speaking, he didn't have to be fired even at the end of the year. It just would have been like, okay, get out. Like your contract would have been over. But the Jets said, oh, hell no. Well, just get out. With 6 games remaining, 7 weeks to go. The Jets have caught some flack on social media because a lot of people have said they haven't seen this sort of thing before, where a head coach was fired at one point in the season and the GM was fired at some separate point in the season. What do you make of the Jets' decision to fire Joe Douglas in the middle of the season, as opposed to letting it play out and him just kind of man the position?
No, so this is the Jets trying to get a head start on the GM search right away. They want to get a list of names, if they could potentially interview some people that are not available, that are not with a particular team. They want to get that done. They want to hire consultants and all those different issues. There is a common theme with a lot of bad organizations where analysts and former players will go out and try to trash them nonstop, and they'll be the butt of the jokes on every given Sunday. And then when decisions are made and people are fired, they come out and they clutch their pearls, essentially saying, well, how could the Jets do this? They're so poorly run. Again, I've said this before. Do I think Joe Douglas was a terrible GM? No, you will never hear me say that, because he did do a lot of good. The team he took over in 2019 was not as talented as it was when he leaves. However, there is a reason for his firing. He did not help himself when you can't get the quarterback position right and the head coaching position right. That's a big part of this. So it's not to say that the Jets were wrong to fire Joe Douglas. Essentially, this is them trying to get a head start, and they're trying to give Joe Douglas time as well to say, listen, you're going to land on your feet. There's going to be teams interested in you. You've got a lot of pedigree. You'll be able to find the job, whether it's as a VP of player personnel, an assistant GM, whatever it is, he'll be able to land on his feet. So getting both started early, I think, is the right way to go. And the other piece to it, defending the Athletic report here, when Joe Douglas had his press conference like 2-3 weeks ago, he looked like he knew this was happening. Like everyone knew this guy just doesn't look happy, doesn't look excited. He knows he's a dead man walking. And I think that's just the reality of the situation. Everyone knew this was coming, whether it happens at the beginning of December, late November, or in January. Does it really matter?
Not to me. To be honest, there was a startledness when I got the ding on the phone. I looked down. I'm like, whoa. Like there was some of like, okay, I didn't have this on the bingo card on a Tuesday on November 19th. But the more it kind of settled on me, I was like, you know what? This guy's gone anyway. Might as well rip the Band-Aid off and let's just go. Now, I need to understand the NFL rules further. I know them better for coaches, less so for executives on the Jets interview process and how quickly they can get, like, obviously, the good news is you just know he's gone and you could start at least your in-house part of the GM search of getting your names together, who you want, all these other things and things of that nature. I'm curious. I'll have to go back through the NFL rule book to see what is allowed for how they can interview them as teams are, like, let's say in the middle of the playoffs and their season extends and things of that nature. That to me, I have to dig more on, but no, I mean, Joe Douglas, him being fired, he did look disheveled. He did look dejected. He looked like he didn't want to be there when he was doing his media availability that normally comes after the trade deadline. Now, you've mentioned a few times this athletic report, and we'll get into specifics because there is a lot of jarring stuff in here. But I think the surface level question I want to ask about this that some people have had questions on is we heard nothing for weeks. Joe Douglas gets fired today. All of a sudden, this massive report comes out last night from The Athletic that has some pretty damning stuff that we're going to get into here, Nick. But I think a surface level question that people have about this is where the heck did this come from? This pile of information, like almost playing detective of like, who's the source to this? Like, how did this suddenly happen? Where did all this information come from? And some people I can see in the comments section are questioning some of the validity of this. I love Zach. I've had him on my show a million times. I've not had Diana, but we've followed each other on social media over the last couple of years. So I'm curious, where did all this come from in your mind? That suddenly we just have this pile of information from The Athletic.
Well, okay, and I'm going to sit here and say
ahead.
this.
Yep.
There are going to be people that question The Athletic because they have certain concerns about Diana and everything else. The Athletic is a news source. That is one of the top news sources in the NFL. If they're coming out with a report, I'm sorry to break it to everyone, chances are all of it is true because they have they have a system where you have to have a certain number of sources. So this is not just one disgruntled, recently fired executive coming out and saying X, Y, and Z. This happened. Publish this immediately. That's not what happened. They have to get multiple sources involved in this conversation. And I believe, if I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, but Joe Douglas could not be reached for comment in that article. So
that's correct. Yeah, there was a moment on the loss of power specifically, because there is some reporting. Again, we'll get into some of the specific examples, but there was a specific conversation that Woody basically stripped his power to a certain point where he couldn't do anything. And The Athletic did say in the column, we reached out for Joe Douglas. He did not provide comment. Yes.
You can't just say that and pretend and then say, oh, actually, we did. That's not how this works in the professional world. So I think people need to stop questioning the validity of it and start questioning if it's not Douglas, if it's not all these other people, what exactly transpired over the last few months. And when you really get into the minutia of what was said and the breakdown of the reports that were being said, it does make a lot of sense. There are some pieces that aren't missing here. Joe Douglas being all about the defensive line and always focusing on the defensive line. And, he did it in Philadelphia. He did it in Baltimore. But in New York, he didn't want to give Bryce Huff a contract. That didn't really add up. You have all these other situations, these incredulous reports about benching Aaron Rodgers after week 5. All these things come up, and we can question the validity of it. That's your prerogative. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But The Athletic has a process. This is the pinnacle of sports journalism. And I think we need to stop questioning the validity and start wondering exactly what's going on at One Jets Drive for these things to come out at the last minute like this.
Yeah, when I was reading through the report, some of it I'm like, oh, that totally makes sense. Woody pushing the Devontae Adams trade, him going, we are, we're elbow deep here. We need to go even more all in. There's no other direction to go. We're already in the middle of the season, so pushing a Devontae Adams trade, which would do the Rodgers thing and all that, that totally makes sense. The one that I was like thrown off, it was like at the behest of the owner, the Jets benched Tony Adams, and I'm like, I didn't even know Woody Johnson knew who Tony Adams was. No offense to Tony, but like damn it, I want answers, boys, and it starts with Tony Adams. I'd be like, what? Our safety Tony Adams? That's okay. I mean, we'll bench Tony Adams, I guess, but like it just seems like such a weird thing for an owner to pick. Tony, the benching of Tony Adams, that one was like, and he played 0 defensive snaps in the in that latest game against the Indianapolis Colts. That one was sort of bizarre and kind of like made me chuckle. It's like I didn't even know Woody Johnson knew who Tony Adams was. That one was on the list. But to your point, let's get to the juicier one. That is like, whoa. Is that Woody? So after week 4, Denver Broncos, the Jets lose 10-9, and Aaron didn't throw a touchdown passing game, didn't throw a pick. He had like a 50% completion percentage to it for like 225 yards. Jets lose. And apparently, Woody Johnson and the Jets powers that be, it's Joe Douglas, a bunch of the coaches, everyone's in a contentious meeting, a room. And Woody goes, maybe we should bench Aaron Rodgers after week 4. And apparently the room is like, what? Aaron Rodgers? Like, I don't know, man. I don't think that's a good idea. And they have this conversation apparently back and forth. They apparently talk him off the ledge. Do you like? I know we don't want to question the validity of the Athletic, but that sounds bonkers. Like we're a month into the season. We didn't see him at all in 2023. And Woody was a driving force of getting Aaron Rodgers to begin with, this Hall of Fame quarterback. And all of a sudden, a month in, yeah, it's Tyrod Taylor time. Like, because there are certain moves in this business, Nick, and you know this, that once you fire the gun, there's no putting the bullet back in the chamber. You bench Aaron Rodgers and heading into the London game, which would be week 5, which would have put Tyrod Taylor into the lineup. You can't just bench him and then things go poorly with Tyrod. They're like, okay, we're back to Rodgers. Sorry, Rodgers, we didn't mean that. Like, once you do that, it's over. So the fact that happened, that conversation, that like, hey, maybe you should just be benched from after week 4 going into week 5 so early in the season. I mean, good Lord, that is jarring stuff, Nick.
People are going to want to question it, but let's also remember a previous report from last year that came out. The report essentially said Woody Johnson really listens to Jets Twitter. And when you have embarrassing losses like the Denver Broncos loss was, you had some, not a lot, but some over-the-top Jet fans who were saying Rodgers isn't it. Put Tyrod Taylor in. He can run this offense better. Like it or not, fans may sit there and say, I never saw anything like that. Don't be facetious. Don't pretend it didn't happen. It definitely did. You had a couple of fans here and there say this team stinks. The quarterback's not as good as we thought. Bench him now. Does it really not make sense for Woody Johnson, who has already been accused of listening to fans on Twitter about making roster decisions, that he would come up to the coaching and general manager and say, maybe we should bench Aaron Rodgers? To me, that was actually one of the ones that made a lot of sense to me because it fits the other stories that have continued. The anonymous reports where he has come up and said, you know what? I want this. And then people would ask why. And then he would show tweets about fans suggesting this. And you'd be sitting there in a corner going, why are we listening to fans? Why don't you trust your football people? And that lack of trust really, really hits home. And, it was an interesting point brought up before that I saw from somebody. Woody Johnson, if my memory serves, he did not hire Joe Douglas. He did not hire
That's
Robert
correct.
Saleh. And
That's correct.
And he's an owner, much like someone I would rhyme Schmary Shones, where he must have some say and he wants a voice in the decisions in the locker room. He wants input on everything. There are owners like that. Jeffrey Lurie does that as well. But when you are away from the team and an organization makes a move and then you supplant yourself into the discussions, Well, that adds a completely different conversation to the list, doesn't it? That adds a completely different dynamic to how things are run here. So I actually, when I heard that Rodgers piece to it, and I read that Rodgers piece, I looked at that and said, yeah, makes a lot of sense. It fits the owner's MO of reading Jets Twitter and reading the reactionary people and trying to get a gauge out of them.
So let me follow up here. Okay. So they didn't bench him. The Jets staff and people in the room apparently were able to convince him otherwise, and they didn't. But, now we're here. There's 6 games left. We're heading into the bye. This is all public information. Now, Aaron Rodgers, that's going to be the most popular Pat McAfee interview of all time. It'd be like, your owner apparently blee, blah, blue. I am very curious how old Aaron Rodgers is going to respond to some of this line of questioning of like, hey, they wanted to bench your ass, buddy. Well, what do you think of that? Like, oh boy. And he still has 6 more games to play. Let me ask you this. Is he starting coming out of now that this is all out in the business? Week, what's that? So 11, 12, 13. So technically week 13. Week 13 is Aaron Rodgers the starting quarterback for the New York Jets.
God, I have no idea. I mean, we're watching an owner right now who is trying to take complete control of this team as quickly as possible, whether it's roster decisions and everything else. And again, the one piece of The Athletic that I found extremely interesting was when Woody Johnson gave this is the most talented team that we've had in 25 years. Mm-hmm. Almost everyone, including myself, believed that this was a feather in the cap of Joe Douglas, a defense of Joe Douglas, because he was the one that was building this team. But Woody Johnson believed that it was he who did it. Jimmy, Woody Johnson was the one that did it, and Joe Douglas was not part of that discussion. And again, Schmery, Jones, very, very similar stuff that I am hearing from that. But like with Aaron Rodgers, whether he sits or not, I think it's just irrelevant at this point. It's not doing what's best for the organization. If we're talking about doing what's best for the organization, and you had one foot out the door with your coach and GM, why didn't you just fire them in 2023? Why did you just fire after the season? So it just seems like a lot of reactionary takes from the owner. And I wouldn't be surprised if Rodgers just tries to deflect. I wouldn't be shocked if he was benched. I wouldn't be shocked if he was playing. It can go any way against Seattle.
All right, fair enough. We've got a YouTube super chat here. Again, we're speaking with Nick Ferrier, our Jets reporter from Athlon Sports. Every time we get a super chat, we hear from my daughter, Zariah Luna. Wow. C chimes in. Not a fan of Woody, but this article seems like a straight hit piece from the Douglas camp to save face. Rosenblatt, Rossini are hacks, C says. What is your response, Nick Ferrier?
Okay. I know this whole, the news is lying and fake news and everything else. It's kind of running through everything. The Athletic is The Athletic. Rosenblatt's done a great job his entire career. Rossini has been awesome. She was at ESPN for a long time. The more, this isn't like they're saying, oh, everything about the Jets is bad. What they are trying to figure out is the big question. Who is to blame for the Jets' struggles? Who is to blame for these all-encompassing issues for the Jets? And that is the question on everyone's minds, including Jet fans. If someone has a report on that answer, and they are giving you an answer based on their reporting, who are you to tell them that they are wrong in the first place? The question everyone wants is what's wrong with the Jets? They are giving you that answer. You may not like the answer. You may not like how it's described, but it sounds like the answer is being given. So who are you to complain about that?
Okay. C is what he just told you. Excuse me. Now, Nick, yesterday, before this Athletic article came out, there was, several people. I don't want to pick on anyone in particular, but several people said, boy, this Jets job and not desirable for all these different reasons. And I said, not desirable. And I tried to defend the Jets a little bit and said, they have a top 7 pick right now. It's only going to be worse. Like I said, I think we talked about this a little bit on the radio yesterday. I think the only win they're going to get is maybe Jacksonville. The rest of them, I think they're going to lose. So they have 3 wins, maybe 4 wins. So it's going to be a top 7 pick, probably higher, but no worse than top 10 is what the Jets are going to get. The Jets are committed to people outside of Adam Gase, which was a universal disaster. Everyone else has gotten time. Joe Douglas was in year 6, Saleh in year 4, Todd Bowles had years. Like everybody, go through the whole list of people, and Woody Johnson gives you time. So I thought all that was like, and you win in New York, it's different than everywhere, and all this other jazz. So I tried to defend it. But I'm going to be honest, after reading this athletic piece and the level of meddling that could potentially be going on here, I think it, throws some dirt on the beautiful speech I was trying to say on social media. So I'll turn it to you, Nick. How desirable is this job? And I say that because we don't know what. Obviously, the Saints are open. Looks like the Bears are going to be open. Looks like the Cowboys are going to be open. Look like a few more jobs will be open, but it's hard to say until they're all officially open. But not necessarily ranking them against others, but just in general, looking at them as a whole. How desirable is the Jets job?
I still think it's a desirable job. I don't think it's as desirable as I thought when Joe Douglas was fired. Let me explain. I, like you, Paul, thought that, listen, there's a lot of pieces here to improve. You're going to have plenty of cap space. You got a young core that few rebuilding teams have. You're going to have some fresh set of ideas. There is a path here to success. And also, let's be honest. We talk about overbearing owners. The McNair family, one of the more overbearing owners in the NFL for the Houston Texans, have been that way since they took over for the team all those years back. And everyone was talking about how dysfunctional they were. And then all of a sudden they weren't, because they got the quarterback right. They got DeMeco Ryans. They brought in these pieces that would help the team in the long run. So I look at where the Jets are specifically, and I say, well, there are still some pieces. They'll be able to get a pretty good coach and a pretty good general manager. But I also am apprehensive, at the very least, to say, okay, how many people are going to want to take a job where the owner calling the shots is not going to be here in a year or two, whenever Woody Johnson takes his ambassadorship with the new presidential administration? When that happens, they're going to have to answer solely to Christopher Johnson. What is that going to look like? Is Christopher going to be on the same side with him? There are a lot of questions that need to be answered when it comes to this Jets team and when it comes to this leadership group from ownership. So the way I look at it, a lot of things to look forward to, a lot of things to question. If it's an attractive job or not, it just really depends on who the Johnsons want, and if Woody is truly going to be the only one banging the drum here.
Fair enough. Again, here, sorry for the quick technical difficulties, folks. But yes, again, we got to see what other jobs come open that'll also influence it. But I just think there's the young premium talent at multiple positions. The top 7 pick that can be higher. I think there are a lot of reasons that there is some attractive levelness to this. But again, seeing everything that's in that athletic report and the potential meddling, even the perception of it, even if people says it's bullshit, it's fugazi, it's made up. Even if that was really true, the perception that it could be true, if I'm a GM or head coaching possible candidate, how could that not possibly affect me in the evaluation of this? So we will see how it affects them. And again, what jobs become available. I think that's a big piece. We have 400 plus people in the room. Like the video, hit subscribe, spread the love of all things Boy Green Daily. The phone lines are now open. If you'd like to say something to Pancake here, Boy Green Daily, it's the pinned comment on youtube.com/boygreen25. And let's go immediately to your boy, Johnny Boy, here on the show.
Nick, Boy Green, what's going on, guys? Good morning, man.
How's it going, buddy?
First and foremost, this is insane if all this stuff is like completely true and all that. I'm trying to be positive in the sense of being like, but it sounds to me like, Woody needs to chill out. Like, he's meddling too much. And it brings me to the point where who's going to want to deal with that? Like, at this point for me, we're going to get a coach that wants to come over here. And the only one I think that is it's Rex. You know what I mean? Like, and do I want that? No, I don't. I would love a Brian Flores and put him with a great offensive coordinator and we kind of go from there. But I just don't. I saw I heard the Diana Rossini interview this morning on ESPN.
I
right?
didn't see it.
And
Okay.
on the DPetro show or whatever it is called and everything. And
Oh yeah, ESPN Radio. Yeah, I got you. Yep.
so she pretty much was saying in regards to the benching of Rodgers
Mm-hmm.
was that it was more of a like because he was injured,
Oh,
right? So it was more of like, should we put in Tyrod right now and let Aaron essentially get, you know, healthy again and whatnot. So
well,
that's kind of a different spin to it,
yeah.
right?
So, Johnny, first off, I just appreciate you adding that in. The thing that I don't understand then with Diana saying that, why wouldn't you put that in the piece? They have two pieces up. The full piece up that's like massive, that has everything. And then they did a smaller piece because not everyone reads everything, where it says, hey, the Jets were going to bench Aaron Rodgers or trying to bench Aaron Rodgers at the behest of Woody Johnson. Hearing this health thing all of a sudden gives it a lot more credence of like, let's get the guy healthy and let's have Aaron for the long stretch. And that's why we have Tyrod Taylor, this quality backup. It's it's cool that she's saying that, and interviews and things can add more context to things. But that sort of thing sounds pretty important context for the potential benching of Aaron Rodgers, because just benching Aaron Rodgers on the surface week 4, a month into the season, seems crazy. But to do it for health reasons, that is more sellable, quote unquote, where I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. So it's kind of
still
weird they didn't put that
ridiculous.
in the
Here's
piece.
the thing. It's still ridiculous, but it is. I think you put it best. It's sellable in that regard, because if Rodgers is hurt, and all those different things, Woody, trying to learn from Brett Favre, saying, well, if he's hurt, he's not going to do us any good if he's not healthy. But by and large, from what Saleh was saying, from what Aaron was saying, he was still good enough to play. With Brett Favre, it wasn't that he was good enough to play. The guy was completely banged up. He needed a week or two off. That really wasn't the case with Rodgers. So, I think it's the best way. It's still like wait a minute, hold on. You want to bench your quarterback because he's hurt, but at the same time, you're still going to defend him like that. That is going to open up a can of worms in the locker room, which is also what Rossini said, where the coaching staff did not want to put the locker room in that position in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's what I mean. Like that part of it is very tough for me to be like he wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers, even though he did what he did in regards to getting the players over here and et cetera, et cetera. Like the reports that came out in regards to like he went personally over to his house, brought him a jar of honey, like all those like off the wall stuff. Now everything else, that's crazy. Like that is very tough, and that is like, if I'm a head coach and I'm looking for that and I get a call from a New Jersey number, I'm like, who this? Click, you know what I mean? Like it's insane. It's a circus right now. And the only thing too in regards to it's gonna get worse. There's gonna be a lot more stuff coming out. And I believe, Nick, you tweeted it out last night, and it was like you're gonna see essentially JD in a different light. And people are gonna start being like, oh snap, when you get a owner that meddles too much in it, there's no success that comes from it. And this is tough, man. I can't believe that the Jets before Thanksgiving are in this position right now. And it's like this is like almost rock bottom, which I don't even think is rock bottom yet, because I think it could get even worse. Like, BG, man, this is a tough one. If this is all true, if this is all really what's occurring and whatnot, it's like, who I worry about the players now, right? The players are like, oh, man, dude, I'm not gonna want to re-sign here. I'm not gonna want to, with all this stuff coming on, like I want to win. Like Garrett Wilson's been on record saying, I want to win. And if this is a complete
Well, I would just say this for the guys that are all about to get paid, and we're like, well, will they want to be here? Money talks, baby. money talks. And the Jets have Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, who are going to probably exercise all of those fifth-year options, and they will have them at least for the next 2 years, which is 2025 and 2026. And then they have the franchise tag after that. I think all of them are going to be very intrigued by financial security this offseason. Whoever the new GM decides would be who goes first. I don't think all of them get paid this offseason, but whoever they decide, let's just say Garrett's one of them. They say, yeah, let's just get this one out of the way. Garrett's like, I'm not sure. I want to win, and I'm not so sure I want to be here. Here's $30 million a year. Okay, where do I sign? Okay, there you go. So, like, I'm not worried about that part yet because we need to see who the guy is, right? Like, right, Devontae Adams and Max Crosby in Las Vegas land said, if you don't hire Antonio Pierce, we want out. And they're like, oh, whoa, okay, Antonio Pierce, you're our guy. Devontae left anyway. So, you know what I mean? I think all decisions can't just be made in a bag like that. But
BG, Nick, I know you guys probably got more people. I just wanted to come up here real quick, show some love. This is a dark time.
Yes.
For the New York Jets right now. And put your seatbelt on, hold on for dear life, because this is about to be a rough one, man. Do what Nick is doing. Having his seatbelt on, baby. It's about to get crazy. Love you.
Yeah, there you go. Safety never takes a holiday. We appreciate that. I would just say this. Again, the Woody Johnson meddling is obviously concerning. But Joe Douglas's blood is on his hands. He fucked up all those quarterback things. He's like 30-64 as a general manager under his leadership. Like, Woody deserves the blame for this weird meddling. Like I said, some of this stuff is like to an extreme level, which I didn't know prior to this athletic report. But, like, Joe Douglas, same as Saleh, as I say before, there's been a big Saleh narrative. Oh, boy, if the Jets didn't fire Saleh, he wasn't the problem. He wasn't the solution. He was 20-36 as a head coach. He stunk too. So, we could talk about timing, and that's fair. Like, now, if Woody felt this way about Saleh and Douglas, maybe he should have just made a prior decision, not right now. He should have made that last offseason. Go ahead, Nick.
Well, and again, Paul, just my point. I'm not sitting here saying that Joe Douglas is absolved. I mentioned that point earlier in today's show where I have said point blank, Joe Douglas did a lot of bad here to exactly show why he is no longer the GM of the franchise. If you can't get the quarterback right, can't get the head coaching right, that's a reflection on your scouting and relationship building abilities. So all those things played against Joe Douglas on his own account. Now, I also will say about Woody Johnson and all this meddling.
Sure.
I think just to compare it, because Jet fans don't know this or don't remember this, but in 2020, the Eagles went 4-11-1. And the only thing anyone can talk about was how meddlesome Jeffrey Lurie had become, the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles had become, where he and Howie Roseman wanted their hands on everything. They wanted their hands on roster building, coach building, the entire in-game management system, everything about it. There was a report, if I remember correctly, I believe it was from ESPN, might have been from The Athletic, that said Doug Peterson got sick of being told what to do, so he is now out. And that's why they parted ways. And everyone wondered, well, how can anyone want to come to the Philadelphia Eagles if you've got a meddlesome owner and a meddlesome GM? Well, eventually they ended up picking up Nick Sirianni, and everything turned around because Jalen Hurts developed into a top quarterback. As bad as things seem right now, as bad as it is, and let me tell you, it is atrocious. You get the coach right, you get the quarterback right, and everything changes. It can change in a month. So while we all say that they're never going to be good or that this is an indictment on Woody Johnson and no one's going to ever want to come here, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the bad thing. Sometimes it's the worst perceived head coaching hire that turns out to be the best.
It's a good way to put it, and two teams immediately come to mind. The Washington Commanders. Dan Quinn. Absolutely. People are like, oh, I don't know, the way the things ended with the Cowboys, I'm not so sure. Oh, Jaden Daniels, oh, wow, okay, this team's great. Houston, they had all that crap where they hired, I'm not even going to remember the guy's name anymore. He was with Baltimore.
Cully.
Yeah, there he is. Where he was there for 5 seconds, and they fired him, and they had the longtime former Bears coach, too. His name escapes me.
Smith.
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just blanking all kinds today. And all those people were there. And then they're like, disaster, the Deshaun Watson thing, all these rotating head coaches, they never give commitment to the head coaches to have time to go through things like undesirable job, C.J. Stroud, D'Amico Ryans, coach of the year, all this other stuff. Like, okay, yeah, things turn around very quickly. So it's all about getting the quarterback right. Okay, we got even more people to get to on the phone lines. We appreciate you guys. Again, like the video, hit subscribe, keep those super chats and memberships coming. Appreciate the support for the show. Let's go to our guy, Hep, here on the program. What's up, Hep?
Hey Nick, hey Paul, how you doing? Hey fellas.
Great.
I started looking at the quarterbacks coming up now. The
Sure,
first one that came up was the Sanders. Was
Yeah,
Sanders?
Shadur, Dion's kid. Yep.
Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, boy, the NFL would love that, huh? If Dion came with his son and they were on the same team.
Oh yeah.
That
Whether
would sell
Cowboys or Jets or a big media market or something. Oh yeah, that'd be wild.
They would love that. That would sell tickets.
Mhm.
But I was curious, what do you think of that kid, Nick? You think he's has anything? Is Nick frozen?
Oh, yep. Maybe Nick's frozen. 1 second. Let's see if we can try to fix Nick here. All right, Nick, you are frozen. I'm gonna kick you from the studio. You just hop back in, Nick. Click the link. You'll be back. I would just say this on all these kids here that it seems like in past years there'd be a Caleb Williams or something like clearly insert guy is number 1 overall pick. I've listened to now that our reality has hit us. As far as our season and where things are going. I've started to listen to people, what they think. There was someone, I was listening to a podcast like Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback. He's clearly quarterback number 1. I went, oh, okay. And then I listened to another one, Shadur Sanders. You can't go wrong. He's number 1. I went, oh, okay. That seems to make a lot of sense. Someone else, Cam Ward, you idiots. He's the number 1 guy. I'm like, okay, I guess he's the number 1 guy. So it seems like everyone has a different take, but while some quarterback classes are just terrible, like a couple of years ago, we had the Kenny Pickett. He was the only guy in the first round, and they all stunk. Yeah. Sometimes we have that. It sounds like this, and sometimes we think it's great. 2021, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, this is the greatest quarterback class since 1983. And all those guys suck. So, every year we think we're great or we think we're terrible or this, that, or the other. We'll see. I hope that the Jets have a chance to get I see Matthias saying there's no first-round quarterbacks this year. We'll see if that's he doesn't think there's any worthies, I assume what Matthias is saying there. I don't know. I think all the kids are bugaboos.
We don't have a 2 this year, right?
We do. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do. Yeah. Let me go to our Jets draft. I think we have all our picks. I think the 3rd rounder we gave up for Devontae.
Okay.
Yeah, we lost that, but we got a bonus one from the Lions, so we should have that. So let me just confirm here. I have a draft order list here in front of me. 2025. Yeah, we have. Yeah. So we have our 1, a 2. Yep, we have 1 pick in every round. We have 2 picks in the 5th round because of the Mike Williams trade. We have 2 picks in the 6th round. That's the Mecole Hardman trade, I believe, is that other 6. We don't have a 7th this year, so we have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, 2 5s, 2 6s. That's our draft pile this year.
Yeah. One quick thing. Sure. I can see why it's very hard to judge these quarterbacks because I'm looking at the tape and they got all day to throw back there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really ridiculous. I'm like, damn, this guy could have a snack. They're just sitting there and they're taking their time, looking left, looking right.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing close to what the NFL looks like. Anyway, here's the journey begins again. Love you guys.
That's right. Hep, thanks for the call. Yeah, we'll see if we could get Nick back on here. But I would say no matter who they take, and I hope they do take a quarterback, that they bring in a bridge guy. Maybe it's Tyrod, who's already on the team. Or it's one of these other guys that comes in, you bring in a Justin Fields or something. I don't know who it is, whoever that guy is, and allow the young man to sit and hopefully develop and learn and be able to kind of marinate. And that would be the Jets have not had a great history of developing quarterbacks, but I would hope that would give them a better chance of doing it, if that makes sense. I think we have Nick back. Nick, can you hear me?
Yep. Can you guys hear me perfectly fine?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, we got you. We got you loud and clear. So, before we go to our next caller, Hepa wanted your thoughts on Shadur Sanders. Do you have any thoughts on the kid?
Really good quarterback. I actually compare him a little bit to a thinner Jalen Hurts, where the arm strength isn't exactly there, but I think he'll transition well to the NFL. The accuracy I think is a lot better than Hurts coming out of college. But I do think he's going to have to deal with some things, some issues, maybe dealing with his father as the head coach. You never know what's going to happen in that regard. So we'll wait to see what happens there, but still a very good quarterback. Listen, this quarterback class, it's not up there with last year's, but it's still pretty talented. There's still a lot of names that can help you in football games, and I think will make a lot of teams happy. So I think this class is being underrated a little bit compared to other classes because it's being followed. They are following one of the best ones in recent memory.
Fair enough. All right, let's go back to the phone lines. We got Chef Kevin Gilbert here on the show. Chef?
BG, Nick, how y'all doing?
Excellent. Thank you.
BG, man, thank you for your ongoing commitment, man, to keeping on pumping out this Jet content. Obviously, it's been tough, but you've still been doing your thing, man. Much appreciated. Nick, man, I haven't spoken to you in a minute. Ever since that Denver game, I was checked out, and that's when I called, and spoke to you for 3 straight weeks, just kind of trying to figure out if the Jets are trying to make any moves with the kicking situation. And being at the game this past Sunday, it took a while, man, way too long. We got one, but man, it just took way too long, man. It's almost felt like, with JD, me personally, I could be, I've always said this, where the 2022 draft, that made me more of a believer. I wasn't, because of the prior picks and drafts or whatever. He's made some good moves, which I thought, but the supposed good moves hasn't translated to wins. And, we could blame coaching and, everything else, but it's just I think just not moving in certain situations in certain positions where we needed help. That just didn't really work out. And, the two of you do an outstanding job when it comes to giving us this Jet content and reading through, the fine lines and stuff. I didn't read any of these reports, but for me, it just seems like with that Woody thing of benching Rodgers, something's just a little fishy, man, because I understand everyone was pissed at the Denver game, but to then have a meeting to talk with everybody about benching him, to then publicly admit him and Rodgers both had a conversation after the Minnesota game, it just doesn't really add up. And if this is true, then it just shows a little weird fishiness with Woody, which I don't know. It's just with the trade that we had for Adams, we didn't really give up anything other than a pick next year. But for this season, all in, I thought that was the move that we should have done, but a lot earlier. I don't understand why Woody had to kind of push JD to get it going. And then with the Reddick stuff, it's just, man, it's just everyone was saying, a clown show. Why is this still happening? And did we do this now so we can get ahead with the GM, with the coaching, get the Curtis Martins, the Pete Carrolls, Parcell, whoever, just to get this stuff in here, get a head coach? Does it hurt to get a head coach in now to help evaluate the talent that we have, to then see about the game plan moving into the foreseeable future? Why are we doing all this now?
You're doing it now to get ahead, and that's exactly, you kind of brought it up. You're getting ahead of the process. You want to get a list of names of coaches, of executives, that when you eventually go into the interview process, you can be prepared and ready for anything that comes up, and for the different candidates that you're going to have. Now, in regards to some of the JD stuff, we know for a fact that when Aaron Rodgers went down in 2023, I've heard multiple people say this, and it was from The Athletic. No, it wasn't from The Athletic. I think it was from CBS, where it wasn't JD that didn't hire the backup quarterback. It was Woody didn't want to spend more money when he was already spending something like the second most cash of any owner in the NFL on the current roster. We know that happened. So to sit here and say that some of this stuff isn't true or anything else, I find it extremely hard to believe that a source like The Athletic, who requires at least 20 to 30 sources at every article being published, is suddenly going to make all this stuff up. It's impossible to do with the standards that they have. So ultimately, I think the reality of the situation is you've got an overbearing owner, and you've got an owner that wants control of the things he can control, and he wants to see wins based on that control. And It works for people like Jeffrey Lurie who win consistently, so he can essentially say, I'll be meddling because when I meddle, it works. But when it comes to people like Woody Johnson who have not succeeded, then people start questioning why exactly are your fingerprints on this roster in the first place.
And real quick, Chef, I just want to add in because your comment that you made about the benching after week 4, that seems a little off kilter. That seems odd, and I had the same reaction when I was reading it. We heard from Johnny Boy. Shout out to Johnny Boy. So it didn't say this in the article, but Diana Russi is doing follow-up media, of course, and so will Zach Rosenblatt today, I'm sure, about this article. And the additional context that Diana apparently provided, according to Johnny, from this ESPN radio interview in New York, is that benching was driven by not just a random benching of Aaron Rodgers, but because Woody thought he was hurt and it would get him healthy to play. And again, me hearing that totally changed my perspective of what I read. Because when I read it's heard benching, just bench Aaron Rodgers 4 weeks in. Because like I mentioned earlier, if you bench Aaron Rodgers, there's no unbenching him. Once you do that, you F up that entire situation. But to hear the additional context that it would have been injury driven, you can sell that. That totally makes sense. You could sell it as an injury and then he goes away. But if you bench him based on his performance, that's where it's all over. So I wish The Athletic, and I'll say that again, I'd tell that to Diana if she was here on the show, I wish she would have put that in the piece because that's very important context that wasn't in the piece, but is now coming out on the media circuit of interviews. And I think that changes the perception of that piece in The Athletic. So I just wanted to share that with you if you didn't hear that when Johnny called earlier.
Yeah, I heard, and if I just want to follow up. So then, maybe this is hypothetical, Nick. You hopefully, maybe I don't know. So how badly was this injury with Rodgers? Because for it to go to Woody, for him to be like, "Hey, we got to sit him because of an injury." I mean, you got to go through the trainers and medical staff and all kind of stuff. Like what the hell is going on? Like with our quarterback with an injury, like doesn't have to be a reporter or something?
No, I think what ended up happening was I think Woody saw Brett Favre in this instance where if the quarterback's not healthy, he's going to cost us wins.
Okay.
But the Jets essentially said, well, we have to trust our training staff. If he's saying that he can play on this, then he can play on this. Why would we bench him if he's ready to go and can play and wants to play? It doesn't make sense. So I think there's a lack of trust there in total because you have an owner that hires training staff and hires coaches and hires all these different guys, but he's not willing to give them the opportunity to run the team. If the trainers say he's good, then he's good. You don't have to worry about benching him for injury. You move forward with what you got.
So if you don't mind, can I just give 2 quick points?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike Will, that's obviously a Woody thing, right? Stepped in, didn't want to pay him anymore, traded Mike Williams. Didn't make the team better by all that. It seems like that has Woody fingerprints on as well, where then he doesn't really have to pay him. Is that correct?
I think that's part of it. It sounds like Joe Douglas has been checked out ever since the Robert Saleh firing. So every move after that, it's a safe bet that it was driven by Woody Johnson.
All right.
And then lastly, thank you guys again for your time. Ticket sales, man. Like past game, like this last game, man, the stadium was completely empty. It was dead, man. Dead. Like Woody had to see that, man, just with knowing that it's only gonna get worse. I'm already like I'm done with buying tickets, man. Like as a season ticket holder. Next year, I'm that like sick in the brain where I'm gonna pay next year to go see this stuff and like torture my kid and my wife keeping on seeing this mess. But as a season ticket, I can't pay these thousands of dollars, man, to keep seeing this stuff where it's not resulting in the wins. I keep losing money. Like I don't even get face value anymore if I want to sell my tickets, which has happened already twice this year. So I think Woody's just like kind of fed up where it's not even a moneymaker really. I get the TV deals and whatever. We ain't buying merch no more. You don't see any new jerseys. You don't see nothing anymore. The seats are empty. Nobody's buying food. Parking lot is half dead, man. It's just a mess, man. But I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Chef.
If you thought Sunday's stadium was empty, I think you're going to be shocked at how empty it is against Seattle.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. We get a YouTube super chat in here. Bang Mateo jumps in again. Every time we get a super chat, we hear from my beautiful daughter Zariah Luna. Wow. He believes it's an attractive job for the next GM and head coach after the Athletic reports. Hey, I am looking forward to whoever this new era is and will be. Bang Mateo. Because we need different, and for too long we have had not different, just not good. And I think I can speak for all of us. We want that to turn around. All right, we got a bunch of cars. We'll keep trucking along here. Let's go. We got Joe here on the show. What's up, Joe?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Hey, great, great entrance there. That was very nice.
Yeah, I'm cleaning up in the garage.
Yeah.
First time I've ever been on. Watch your show all the time, but first
I
time I've
appreciate
ever
that.
actually
Thank you,
called
sir.
into
Thanks
a
for
show.
calling in.
Yeah, I actually I've been a season ticket holder since 1980. I was a kid. I went to games with my dad, and this year is actually the first year that I let my tickets go. I had them for 43 years, and last year was the end. And I spent too many Sundays rather. Usually was Sundays because we hardly ever played prime time. Too many long Sundays away from, doing other things with the family and stuff, and just you know going home disappointed, going home angry, sitting in traffic. So I just was like, the heck with it. But I'm not here to complain about that. I'm looking at Woody from a different perspective. I think that the biggest mistake that we made this year, and I totally don't blame him. I think getting Rodgers was our biggest mistake. It was a great move at the time, and I could see why we did it. But bringing this guy in and everybody genuflecting to him like he was the second coming of Jesus Christ, was the wrong thing to do. They we always joke during the course of the season that he's the real GM. He's making the moves. We had to appease him by hiring probably the worst offensive coordinator in the game, and I'm old enough to remember that his dad screwed up the Jets, so he's got a lineage of screwing over the Jets in terms of the Hackett family. So I think that was our first mistake, and Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Fame player, watched him his whole career when he was on television, and there's no denying that. But sometimes things just don't work out, and I think that was where we went wrong this year. And what I said about sticking up for Woody. I mean, I went through the Leon Hess era. You could say what you want about Woody Johnson, but Woody Johnson is not afraid to spend money to bring players in here. It has to do with the fact of, are you going to bring the right players in here? Sometimes it's not always the Aaron Rodgers or Devontae Adams names that have to be brought in here. You got to bring in guys that are going to fit a mold and add to the team in positions of weakness. I think with Joe Douglas, him and we could talk about how his name slips my mind. The one we traded to Philly there.
We didn't trade him, but Bryce Huff you're talking about, right?
Bryce Huff, let him go to Philly, right?
Yeah.
Okay, getting rid of Bryce Huff. Fans wanted to keep him. He was real productive here in this defense. Fans wanted to keep him on. Then we let go of John
JFM.
Franklin Myers, and for what reason? Like now we're taken away from key areas of the team, and you could see that, and also the other guy that was just available and we didn't pick him up.
Quentin Jefferson, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Quentin Jefferson. We hurt the interior of the line, which also hurt Quentin Williams. You know what I mean? Now they can key in more on him. So, like, now you're looking at a team we're going into a new era, and we're still gonna need more offensive linemen. Okay, we drafted, Fashanu last year, which I thought was great. It wasn't a sexy pick. I did like Brock Bowers. I'm not going to pretend I know anything about college football, but we're still going to need to invest in the offensive line. I definitely think we need an upgrade at tight end, for sure. But I think me personally, and you guys might disagree with this, like I want my main guy that I want in here is John Gruden, because John Gruden is going to be on I want a John Gruden revenge tour. John Gruden is pissed off at the NFL. He's got a score to settle, a huge chip on his shoulder. He's a smart guy. He's well respected around the league, no matter what people say about him. And right off the bat, he does what Woody Johnson loves, which is put a focus on the Jets and creates excitement and a stir that a Ben Johnson is not going to do. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying Ben Johnson is not going to be a good coach, but I think, and even if you bring in a defensive, let's just say Rex Ryan, okay?
Sure. Okay.
Rex Ryan, he's still been, invested in the NFL. So he's not like, oh, the guy hasn't been around for how many years. Rex Ryan knows defenses. The guy, there's no denying that. If I'm going to sit down with Rex Ryan and I'm going to say to him, all right, you want to take this job. What kind of staff are you going to assemble? You have to assemble basically another head coach on the offensive side of the ball. You need guys that have a track record of developing a quarterback, because we don't have, unless Travis is good, I don't know. We don't have the next guy on the team. So
Definitely
we're going to need to dedicate ourselves to having an offensive staff, whether it be the head coach, but he's still going to have to be the head coach. Somebody on that side of the ball that's going to be a known, have a track record of development a quarterback. Because we've made this mistake. You guys have been around, we've made this mistake with Sam Darnold. We made this mistake with Zach Wilson. I understand the gentleman that passed away, Greg, I forget the guy remember he got killed on the bicycle.
Oh yes, Greg Napper.
Yeah. So he was supposed to, I guess, be more involved in the development of Zach.
Correct.
But we never replaced him, and I just think that that's what we got to focus on. I don't care defense, offensive minded coach. You bring Rex Ryan in here, and again, this is just spitballing. You bring Rex Ryan in here with this defense. He hypes you up, man. The guy creates like a stir around the team, an aura around the team that that in itself gives you an extra couple of wins in the season. Just him, charging you up, and then you put a staff together on the other side of the ball that is developing, known to develop quarterbacks that can coach up quarterbacks. I don't even know. Maybe you don't get these guys in the league. Maybe you go to these quarterback camps that these guys go to, that these guys that develop that aren't part of the NFL, and you bring them in here and say, listen, you're going to work with our guy. You're going to go through the draft process with us, and you're going to identify a guy that you think can be worked with. I don't know. Maybe a Justin Fields. The dimension that he adds to the game, you protect Justin Fields, to give him a good line. You add Breece Hall and Agent Zero there, the young kid, and you give got a quarterback. I'm not going to compare, because no one compares to Lamar Jackson, but you got a quarterback that can run the ball. That in itself lays the defense back. They can't, key off on the quarterback for fear of him, getting extra miles out of a couple of runs that he makes. So, I'm just saying, like, I got to be honest with you, going back to me being a season ticket holder for so long, like, I just lost my passion for this team. Like, I I would never not watch a Jet game or go to a Jet game. But now I do other things, and I'm a peripheral fan. I've just lost the passion for the game because I've been through it for too long.
And I appreciate it, Joe, and I can respect it. Wow, there was a lot there. I appreciate the call, Joe, and boy, Justin Fields, maybe some John Gruden action. There's a lot there.
Nothing screams quarterback development than bringing in Justin Fields, who can't complete mediocre passes.
Could kind of run around. That could be kind of fun. Who knows? I don't know.
It could be fun, but are you going to win games when your quarterback can't complete passes?
Well, that I'm less sure about. Okay, let's go back to the phone lines here. We've got Easy here on the show. What's up, Easy?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Okay, not too shabby, I guess, all things considered.
Can you come back to me? I'm in the middle of doing something.
Sure.
Because I have some major rants coming up.
Major rants. What a tease. It's almost like I do this in radio. I'm going to the radio station after. I've got major rants, but I'm not ready yet. Put me back in the dressing room. Okay. All right. Okay.
Gotta get my makeup right. Gotta get the drink right.
Of course. Gotta get, the Anchorman thing. Molly made a major sandwich. Molly made a mana. He's getting his voice right. I can respect and appreciate that. We get a lot of callers. So that's okay. Let's go to a delusional Jets fan here on the show.
Hey, what's going
delusional,
on,
is your makeup ready?
Oh yeah. Awesome.
Okay, great. You look great.
Thank you, man.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, what's on your mind?
Hey, I know my last call, I kind of got straight into it. I just wanted to say, man, big fan of the show. I've been watching for a few years. Nick, big fan of you too, man.
Appreciate it.
But what I say is, man, I think this team needs like a bridge coach, right? I think like we need like an Aaron Glenn type. I know he's not the offensive guy or like the sexy name or whatever, but we just got to surround this young team with guys who care, guys who have been in situations like New York, know how to win, and be like, hey, like I know it's bad now, but you can win here. You can be successful. And I don't want to just overcorrect like the typical Jets thing and be like, well, the defensive guys aren't working, so who's the next offensive guy, and just try to check a box, right? So like if we could get a guy like Aaron Glenn, even if he isn't the coach that brings us to the promised land, but if he can get these guys committed and bought
a culture setter.
A culture, exactly. That's what Salah was supposed to be. But, I don't even want to go down that path.
But let me ask you real quick, Delusional Jet fan. I'm going to be honest. I've been on the planet for, 30 some odd years. And, I've been watching and listening to football for a long time. I don't think I've ever heard the term bridge coach. I've heard bridge quarterback, I've never heard of that in my life. What is a bridge coach?
In defense of delusional Jet fans here, I get what he's saying. He wants a guy to set the culture, and Robert Saleh was supposed to be that. Kind of like when the Washington Commanders hired Ron Rivera. They hired him to fix the culture and then find the next guy. The one thing that I will push back on, though, is if you're hiring a bridge guy, that's how you get your Lovie Smiths and Dave Cawleys, where you're only hiring them for a year or two, and then you're just back in the coaching totem. You don't want that. You want a guy that can run this team for a decade and he can win consistently.
Yeah, and I want to marry the head coach and GM together. I want those two to stay together. I don't want a GM and then you get the coach and the coach facts up and then you're going over here. That's I think we lost Delusional Jet fan there, but I think we got him back. Let me try that one more time. Delusional, you there?
My back, you're good.
Okay, yeah, you're back. So anywho, I'm going to be honest, I've never heard, and I like learning new things every day. What the hell is a bridge coach?
Right. So basically exactly what Nick said, but I agree. You definitely want to just try to get that right and have that set in stone. But what I'm saying is that like with the coaches that are out there now, like maybe it's just me, I don't want any Patriots guys. Like I don't want, if I hear the Patriot way in the parking lot, I'd be ready to drop kick somebody. All right, like I don't want any Patriot guys. My only requirements for the next guy is, can you set a culture, and what is your plan to sweep the Patriots? Like, we need a guy who comes in and knows what Jet fans care about, knows what this city cares about, and gets us back to that before we could talk about playoffs, before we could talk about long term anything. Like, we have to make the layup. That was the biggest issue. with this regime, they didn't make the layups. They couldn't do the easy things.
That's
Could
true.
you say you're
And
looking for a
good
Bill
call,
Parcells?
delusional. Yeah,
you
well,
say he's
here's
looking
the
for-
thing. When he says no Patriot way, like you think about a lot of the guys, Flores, former Patriots guy, Vrabel, former Patriots guy. And then there's like the obvious Patriot guys, like Belichick ain't coming here, McDaniels is a Patriot guy. Like there's a lot of people that got Patriot roots, but I kind of appreciate that from delusional. Like, fuck the Patriot way, like fuck the Patriots.
Yeah, you want your own thing. And I will say, listen, I've been pounding the table. Hiring a defensive guy would tell me that this team's learned nothing. You need offense. You need to develop a quarterback. I look at a guy like Kevin Stefanski. If the Browns were to fire Stefanski, I think Woody Johnson should bring a truck, pick him up, tie him to a seat, bring him to New York, and tell him to sign a contract. That's how much of a no-brainer that decision would be for me. But other than that, you need an offensive guy, whether it's Slowick, whether it's Ben Johnson, all these other young minds, Joe Brady. You need someone to develop a quarterback once and for all here, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be, again, hey, Kevin Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year. If the Browns are stupid enough to let him go, which they've done stupid stuff their entire life, that would be terrific. Absolutely terrific. Again, we got 600 people in the room. We appreciate you guys. Like the video, hit subscribe. We got several more callers here. I'll try to get to all of you guys here. Let's see if he's ready yet in makeup. EZ, are you ready for your major rants or still not ready yet?
Oh, I'm ready.
Oh, geez. Okay.
I am so ready for this. Okay.
All right.
If you want to hear someone blast Woody Johnson, prepare yourselves. Buckle up, buttercups.
Okay. Nick's already buckled. Okay. I don't quite have a seatbelt here, but I'll just try to hang on for dear life. Okay.
This whole thing with Woody Johnson is because he is having a temper tantrum like a friggin' 4-year-old. Okay?
Woody Johnson.
This whole season, Woody Johnson, a freaking full-blown man tantrum.
Man,
that's what he's
having. Heard of that word either.
Yeah. First off, Woody, stick to selling Q-tips and poisoning women with your powder. Okay, stay away from football. You doofus, bald-headed twit. All right, now. The whole reason he fired Saleh was because he got embarrassed losing the London game in front of all his rich, powerful friends. And he was like, I am going to fire that prick. I am so pissed. That's what this was all about. 100%. That was it.
All right.
Now he's meddling in the game, and he has no clue what he's doing. He undercut Saleh, then he undercut JD. JD was doing great when Chris was in charge. As soon as Woody came back, all mayhem started. Unbelievable. He just needs to let the football people do what he does. I don't think he talks to any of his scientists on how to do shit. But this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And now we find out he's the one who told Joe D not to get a backup quarterback last year. Holy shit, that's a revelation. What a dipshit. For a guy that wants to win now, and then he doesn't give his guys permission to win now, means he's an idiot. Sometimes you got a ton of money, but you don't know what the hell to do. It's called being penny wise and pound foolish. Jesus Christmas.
Wow. Well, EZ, you weren't lying about major rants. Wow. That was very colorful. I appreciate that. Wow.
I wish I had popcorn.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, let's I don't know who's supposed to follow that up, but if there was a man for the job, his name would be Alan. Let's bring on Alan on the show.
Honestly, I never laughed more than I have the last 24 hours. Again, I always said that this was a reality show at One Jets Drive, and it truly is. Again, that was a hit piece in The Athletic against Woody Johnson. You could say it all you want. You could spin it every single way. That was a hit piece, okay? But what bothered me the most yesterday was listening to Rich Eisen, Dan Orlovsky, and Mike Florio say to themselves, oh, we should have kept this GM who is 34 games under 500. Oh, what a horrible move to fire this guy. This guy was an abject failure. I'm sorry. This was year 6. There was no need to bring him back. He had the ability to pick players, but had absolutely no plan. I was listening to Aaron Rodgers yesterday, and he said it perfectly. This guy knew how to pick players, but there was no plan beyond that. Again, this guy picked a loser head coach. He picked the wrong quarterback, and he picked the wrong left tackle. That's a big start right there. But again, this is a complete retool to me. Actually, it's a rebuild because we don't have a quarterback. What I got out of yesterday is Aaron Rodgers' days with the Jets is nearly over. Thank God. The only problem I have with Woody is Woody needs to surround himself with competent football people. Stop calling Peyton Manning. Stop listening to Charlie Casserly. Take your money and go find yourself a couple of football people and let them bring in real football people to run this organization. To me, the most important person in the 2025 Jets season is their general manager. It's not anybody on the football field. It's their GM who has a plan in hand. The problem is the GM that we just had no plan. He picked players and basically told the coach, you do whatever you want to do with the fucking players. Unfortunately, Saleh was a bad used car salesman who had absolutely no idea what he was doing. Again, he was clueless. He ran a country club. That's the problem. Once he got fired, that defense and all of its players quit, namely Sauce Gardner, okay? Bring in competent people who have an idea what they're talking about, and then we start from there. Other than that, I don't want to hear about any players re-signing or cutting. Just bring in a smart football person. And again, you know my love for the 2024 Lions. That is my first thing I would do. I would raid them. Again, I would take the next 6-7 weeks. I'd go to Detroit. I'd see if Dorsey wants the job. I'd see if Agnew wants the job. By some miracle, they bring Ben Johnson with them. If they don't, bring in Glenn, bring in Tanner Engstrand. Let that kid who's worked with Johnson for 5 years run the offense and have a modern offense with this organization. Again, the key is the general manager. I don't give two shits about any of the players on the 2024 team going into 2025. The problem is we were run by morons the last 6 years. Honestly, that's where I have a problem.
Okay. Wow. A lot to unpack there. Alan, thanks for the call, pal.
Anytime, man.
Well,
Right,
I will say this, and I think this is where the reactionary piece comes in, because at the time of their hirings, I think everyone would have agreed. Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, these are football people. They are.
Sure.
Saleh was a great defensive mind with the 49ers. Joe Douglas worked at the altar of Howie Roseman and Ozzie Newsome. There was a lot of pedigree there. There was a lot of work and a lot of positive resume building from both of them. The issue is, when it does not work out, as Alan has clearly shown, and as the Jets have clearly shown, things tend to just blow up, and the football people you bring in don't look like football people anymore. So it's about, and again, I'm actually not disagreeing with Alan in the fact that the general manager is the most important pickup right now. You need to get this hiring right, because the GM is the one who's going to draft the quarterback, and you need to make sure you draft the right one. So I completely agree with Alan in that regard. I will also say that if it really is the case of this being a hit piece, then my question would be, everyone's been wondering, who is the fault of the Jets? And everyone's got an opinion. Alan says Aaron Rodgers. All these other people say this, they say that. All these different ideas. The Athletic gave you an answer. They gave you the answer. Don't be angry that they gave you the answer you weren't looking for.
Fair. Yeah, but you got an answer. Maybe not the one that you wanted. Nick, thanks as always for joining us. Welcome back, and looking forward to next Wednesday. We can only imagine what we're going to be talking about then.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
There he is, Nick Feria, joining us on the show. And just real quick, I'll get to a super chat. I'll get to our next caller here, and also just a comment from Alan. I'm a big fan of the Rich Eisen show. I love Rich Eisen. I love listening to his bits and his shows and everything. And he had a breaking news thing reacting to the Douglas thing, and I was like, wow. He basically, you could go listen to Rich Eisen's take, but he was like, I can't believe the Jets are doing this. This is crazy. And I'm like, what? Like, Joe Douglas stinks. Well, what do you mean this is crazy? So I was a little thrown off by his. I didn't see Florio's and everybody else, and I haven't listened to any of the Badlands stuff yet, but, like, I can't believe Rich Eisen is, like, flabbergasted that the Jets would do this. Joe Douglas was not very good, and he seemed very dejected. Super chat here. Ace of Spades. Sorry for getting to this late, but better late than never. Wow. We need someone with the rep Woody respects. Yeah, we need something. We need something. I appreciate the super chat, Ace of Spade. What the Jets need, and I said it yesterday, and I'll kind of keep pounding the table about it, is the Jets need a vision. That is what they need. They need someone with a vision. The GM hire obviously is super important, / director of football ops if they're going to make that sort of hire. Because the GM, of course, is going to pick the quarterback, but also is going to pick the head coach. And normally GMs kind of swim in the pool of head coaching candidates that they normally have connections to. That normally is how it works. So who the GM is will paint the line of likely who the head coach will be. All right, let's go back to the phone line for a final call. We got Neil Sr. here on this show. What's up, Neil?
Well, how are you?
Oh, man, well, crazy show.
Yeah, again, I'm a season ticket holder who is not buying my seats next year. So they, not unless I'm sitting on the sidelines, with making decisions with Woody and hanging out with him and telling him what I think he should do or not do. But anyway, not to say that any of us are qualified, because we're not. We're fans.
Sure. Yeah, right.
But, Douglas, I will say his eulogy is very simple. Okay. One of the best pickers of players, certainly that we've ever had before. Okay. And that can't just be based on what's on our roster, but just to look on what's on other teams' rosters that we got rid of, vis-a-vis Pinnock, great safety, Giants.
Sure.
We can Frankie Louvu.
Ah, yes, Louvu.
Great player. We gave Blake Cashman. We certainly could be using Blake Cashman right now at middle linebacker with C.J. Mosley being out. That's just to name a few. There's probably like 5 or 6 more ex-players that we got rid of that other teams picked up. And prior to Joe Douglas, there was never a GM that when we got rid of players that anybody was ever interested in. Let's be real. Okay. Yeah. That never happened with Idzik. It never happened with it. When they left the Jets, nobody even gave a shit what the story was going forward. So that's his positive eulogy. His negative eulogy is very simple. Okay. You bring in Aaron Rodgers. You don't have a backup plan prior to the start of the season. When you had Minshew, when you had Baker Mayfield, you could have signed a great quarterback last year. Then when he goes down, he still doesn't get somebody. And we're stuck with Tim Boyle. And, I don't want to say the other guy's name because I don't want to part it from my lips anymore. It's just too hard for me to do. But,
I understand.
And then we still had a chance because our defense held us in a lot of games last year. We could have got Josh Dobbs. Even, we had some offensive line problems. We could have got a quarterback that ran around. We could have even have gotten Flacco, which somebody took and ended up taking Cleveland to the playoffs. So that was a big error on his part. Now, fast forward to this year. He fixes the backup quarterback situation. We get rid of Huff. We get rid of JFM. And he doesn't sign Reddick before the season starts. So that was a big fail right there. And I don't know what the reasoning was there. And I don't believe Woody Johnson was holding him back from signing Reddick because we needed him. We let the season go on. And the defensive line ended up being a huge Achilles heel. Then, when I'm watching preseason games and I watch Zerline kick 2, pulls to the left, and we had a very capable kicker in there. It's now starting. Who was the kicker we had in preseason? I forget. What was his name?
Austin Siebert.
Siebert is kicking real well this year, and he was kicking well in preseason. That's when you make a decision. I know we paid the guy, but the reality is, look at Justin Tucker for the Ravens.
Yeah.
Justin Tucker best in history, first ballot Hall of Famer. He's missing kicks this year, okay?
He
the
is.
guy is not what he was. Once these guys mix kicks, they're like closers. They don't come back until maybe a year or two later. Because once it gets in the guy's head that I'm not automatic anymore, he's not automatic anymore. And that's what happened with Greg DeLay. So, and then we wait, not one game into the season, not 2 games. We wait for him to lose 3 games for us. Come on, man. Bang. Yeah. Okay. So Douglas, arrivederci. Okay. Now, fast forward.
All right.
When people tell me, and I hear, this guy doesn't want to come to the Jets. Nobody wants to play for the Jets. Look, here's the reality. Woody's going on to be ambassadors. He's not going to meddle and whoever the next person is that comes to run.
That's true. Yeah.
Fair statement, Paul?
Yeah, that's a very fair statement.
Secondly, whoever gets this Jet job, if we want the best, whoever really is going to be the best choice, and we want an established guy. I don't want newbies. Okay, we're done with newbies. Okay. If you want an established guy, and I'm that guy, I want to do what Parcells always said. I want to be the cook. I want to. What was Parcells' line?
Yeah, it was like, he doesn't want to make the meal if he can't shop for the groceries.
There you go. Now, the guy that whoever that guy is that we want to bring in, the best guy is going to want to shop for the groceries as well as cook the meal, right, Paul?
Sure. Yeah, I would imagine.
Now, who is that? Who are those coaches that are in that can make those demands at this point? Who do you think are in that? Is there anybody that's that good?
Well,
Rabel?
It depends on perception. Some people would say Ben Johnson is going to command that sort of stuff, but he's never been a head coach before. So,
come on,
who
would you think?
Vrabel. Vrabel is a guy that was pissed in Tennessee that they traded away A.J. Brown. He didn't want to, so he sounds like a guy that wants both.
Now, Vrabel, one thing about Vrabel is he also hired 2 OCs that are now head coaches. So
that's a great point. I heard Jake Asman say that yesterday. I didn't think about that, but that's a good point.
Now, I will, by the fact that he has picked 2 guys that were successful, and Vrabel seems like a no-type guy. He knows players. He was a player. He knows how to evaluate talent. Now, so everybody will say, he doesn't want to come to the Jets. He's going to have a lot of other choices. But let me ask you, once you dangle the keys to run the kitchen and everything else, and you say, here's that job, these guys are going to not walk. They're going to run for the job. And we're going to afford to pay them more money because we don't have to pay the GM big bucks. Right, Paul?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so let's go with that type of premise that we get a guy that's everybody's going to want, but he's going to want to come to the Jets more because of that. Now, let's also talk about Aaron Rodgers a second.
All right, sure. Yeah.
The other guy, 2 calls back saying a mistake by taking Aaron Rodgers. Come on. Who was our choices at the time? Derek Carr.
Yeah, that's where I push back on. Joe said that he was a first-time caller. We couldn't have predicted what would happen after, but you have to take the swing. I don't blame Joe Douglas for trading for Aaron Rodgers. It didn't work out, so he has to deal with the reality that it didn't work out. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers was our best possible option because which is a Joe Douglas problem. We fucked up the Zach Wilson pick. He was not good, so you had no other choice. You had to pivot somewhere else, and your pivot was Aaron Rodgers.
And not only the pivot, the fact that he wanted to come to the Jets.
Of course. Right.
That's like Santa Claus wanting to come to the land of misfit toys and pick us up and take us to somebody's house. That's what I equated Aaron Rodgers wanting to come to the Jets for. Okay, so that was not even, it was a dream. We all thought, Paul, that we were never going to get him, that he was never going to come here, right or wrong?
Yeah, that's what the majority of people thought, yeah.
Okay, so let's now look at where we are, okay? Aaron Rodgers had a game. When we had the Patriot game, we were all excited. We saw what Aaron Rodgers' capabilities were.
Yeah.
He torched the Patriots. He looked great. Then he goes and makes a comeback game against Tennessee, and we're very excited, okay? Mm-hmm. Then something happened, and it happened really quick. He got the crap kicked out of him, not for one game, just a Denver game. 3 games in a row, he got smashed to a pulp, right? Got hit.
He did.
Okay. He came out of both of those games, one with a hip. Didn't he? Not a hip. He had a hamstring. He had an ankle injury.
He had a knee. He had an ankle, and then he fucked up his hand. I think that was Pittsburgh. So so a lot of injuries.
Now, was that on his? I think all those injuries were on his plant leg, were they not? I think it was.
I think he had both legs hurt at one point. So there was both legs. Yeah.
So let's take this Athletic article and say to the fact that he was probably banged up, and they had a discussion about possibly benching him for a few games to get him healthy again. It wasn't that they wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers and replace him because he had a bad game.
Which is how they painted it. In the Athletic article, they painted it as if he played poorly and they were going to replace him with Tyrod. But the truth is, apparently, as Diana's doing these media interviews, is that, to your point, that he was hurt, and Woody is suggesting, let's get him right because we're going to try to make a run late in the season. That's the point. Rest him for however long it's going to be till he can get healthy. But that's not what they put in the Athletic article, which is super annoying.
And the other thing is, Rodgers is, look, he said he was healthy and he felt good, okay?
Yeah.
Now, the bottom line is this. If I'm limping and I need 5 days of rehab before I could even go into the next game, and instead of needing 5 days of rehab, I still need 2 days of rehab, and if I get hit once, I start limping, which even in the last game, he's still limping off the field, Paul. He's not 100%, let's face it. He's good enough to run a little bit, but he's not good enough to escape the pocket. And the guy that we need, the Aaron Rodgers that will take that takes his game to the next level, is having that ability to extend the play and get out of the pocket. And that's where his game is, and he's not ready to do that yet. And what I believe is, and again, I believe that with the extra time off, we had the 10 days off. He didn't get hit in this last game, really. Okay, he was making poor decisions. He's obviously looking at the line of scrimmage because he knows he's one hit away from being out of the game. And that's really his problem, is he's not taking the hit or doing anything else. But in conclusion, if he has this this bye week, and he comes back and he starts to move and look a lot better, and then he starts playing more like Aaron Rodgers, and let's just say the last 6 games, he throws another 12 touchdowns to a game because he's got 17 now, and 12 is 30. He throws 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, throws for 3,500 yards, and we win 4 out of the next 6 games. You want to tell me there's another quarterback you're going to want next year that's going to be better than that? Name me one. Name me one. There are none. Okay? So let's cut the shit about what quarterback we're going to get next and what's this and what's that. Look, let's get a competent coach. We still have a good roster. We have an offensive line finally, okay? And I don't want to hear about Brock Bauer. Look, Fashanu was the right move. We have a good offensive line, and they're starting to come together now, and they're playing a lot of games together. The problem is Rodgers is hurt, and the play calling is sucked. Okay, because we could run the ball 60 times a game with Brees and Braylon Allen. And where's the jet sweeps? Where's the wide receiver screens? Devontae Adams, you give him 3 wide receiver screens on the first 3 downs, he's getting the first down. I mean, he gets the ball. He always gets 4 or 5 yards after. We didn't throw one wide receiver screen.
We didn't, Neil. I could let you keep going. I got to go to the radio show, but I will just say this. Is there a path to Aaron Rodgers being the guy? Is he the best possible 2025 option? There's a lot of chutzpah that they can't. But this winning 4 of 6, we've had a report from SNY that the players are checked out. We had a report that Joe Douglas was checked out. So much checking out. We will see. It's to me. And I claim to be the most optimistic Jets fan on the planet. The only win I see right now is Jacksonville. I don't see how this team's going to turn around. I hope they turn around. That'd be wonderful. It doesn't sound like they're going to. I do have to go to the radio station, as all these other people are saying, so I got to head out. We'll be back on tomorrow morning for Boy Green Daily. We'll take more of your calls, and sorry to all the calls that we missed. Just too many calls. Sorry, but we got to go. God bless. We love you. Peace.